And Christina, you were the person who inspired this conversation. In that, I started talking about the habits of mind and how we use them this summer, and you said that as a teacher you would be interested to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
About how you use them, yeah.
Right. So let me just let's remember the plus and minus.
Apologies, I'm eating dinner because I haven't eaten yet.
So, thank you for coming during your dinner.
Okay.
I appreciate the so let me just say that just to identify what this floor is about. It's a Youth Voices floor. I think I set it up about a year ago. It identifies 6 different sort of discourse modes that are available on Youth Voices. The idea here is that you could sit in each of these chairs and then go off and into different chairs and then come back together at the end. And what I've done over the last few days is I've put this little habits of mind icon on each table. And that takes you to an example. So, an example within each of the discourse modes.
The habits
Yeah,
of mind.
don't play it now or go ahead. But
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can't. Because I could just talk it now. So, yeah. So let me think for a second. Marina, why don't you give a little thought about how did you see the habits of mind working this summer with the LootStem group? I didn't tell you I was going to do this. But go ahead. Yeah.
What?
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you to do this, but go ahead. Yeah.
Let's do this. What? Just talk about it?
Yeah.
I figured we were going to talk about it.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, there's the whole playlist to dig deep into what those 16 habits are, and the amount of reflection that students were asked to do, not just on that, both of the documents, really. We have the chapter 2 document as well as the student explanation piece. So it was really two-tiered in a sense. So learning the information, but also reflecting on the information while you're and applying it or recognizing it. So becoming more aware. And I think that from a lot of the responses that I was reading after tasks were done.
Chris, we're up in the first room right above you. Good.
There were really nice connections that were being made. And also I think moments too where people were suggesting that the way they might have thought about something the first way has changed or shifted or expanded. And I think that's really great to offer to anybody, especially people going through the education process, because it helps us tap into ourselves so that we can be mindful of that for our future learners.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Chris. How's school going? Chris is in the 3rd day of his school, yes?
That is correct.
So one of the things we hope to do here also is inspire people to perhaps use the habits of mind in their classes. This and Chris, you're my favorite person to ask about that. And as we go, you okay?
Got a little button happy here. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's fun to watch you move around. Anyway,
yes, habits of mind.
So why don't we go from room to room here a little bit, and then see if it breaks up from that. just to say that one of the things we did not do this summer was that is possible to do is that when students, so everybody, all users of Youth Voices have a wall, right? And on that wall, everything gets collected, including their comments on Now Comment, get sucked in there with an RSS feed. So it's an activity stream, and anybody can go into somebody's activity stream and add a habit of mind to that activity. So you can go in and just quickly, just like an emoji, hit it and say, hey, looks like you are thinking flexibly here. You can make a comment then if you'd like to or not, but you can just leave the emoji. So that's something to think about practicing as we go. But that's, it's both kind of really quick and maybe not so important, and then another level might be fun to do with kids. Any questions about that? Should we look at that further, or is that okay?
I was wondering what a wall was, but if I click on this,
so your profile, if you click on Christina Cantrell's wall, it'll take you to a wall.
Voices?
Yes, in Youth Voices.
Okay.
Let's come back to that if we need to. Let's come up to the second room, if you don't mind moving up. All right, and if you click on the document there, it'll take you to that framework which you've seen before. But if you click on Habits of Mind, you'll see examples from this summer of people writing about the habits of mind in terms of a bio. And this is one way I would talk about that. I don't think, Marina, you mentioned this yet, but one way we kind of personalized the habits of mind kind of really toward the beginning was asking everybody to create a bio of themselves, but using one of the three of the 16 habits of mind to identify something about themselves, right? And so if you click on that, you can see people doing rough drafts there. Nikki, you made one. What was your experience like?
I much prefer, honestly, that assignment of trying to figure out for myself which habits of mine fit together into a narrative than the first suggestion you made earlier, which is to sort of attach a habit of mine to somebody else's work.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I have a preference for using it as a way to help people figure themselves out. I think that it's kind of hard to necessarily, identify what someone else is doing using one of those labels. So that would be my only pushback here.
Mm-hmm.
I love
It's
the
helpful.
assignment trying to write the narrative and incorporate 3 habits of mind. I thought it worked really well.
And in fact, what people did first was, Rena, you mentioned the second chapter of the book. Are you still here? Yeah, there you are. Sorry.
I'm here. Yeah.
No, I was just my screen was off. No, so people first annotated 1 or 3 habits that they just picked, and they looked at each other. So there was a reading of the article first. That Art Costa wrote, and then we asked them to actually just copy from their comments into a doc here, and then to revise that into a multimodal piece. It becomes multimodal because we asked them to record it as well. So we can look at those a little bit later. But are we making some sense here? Let me grab Janet here 1 second. Hi, Janet. Lovely. Hi. Lovely to see you. We are in the second room to the left here.
Okay.
Right here.
And what are we referring to? Brendley is here?
No. Hey, Chris. Don't go to that one. Go to the Habits of Mind icon in this room.
Oh, okay.
That's your pen that keeps squeaking, right?
maybe. Sorry. Thank you.
I have a mouse in my house, and I want to make sure it's not the mouse. But
Oh,
And it was right here by
I
my
just, like,
mic,
brought my
so yeah, I'm
feet up.
sure.
I just brought my feet up on rose my feet up so my feet aren't down. And I was like, oh my God, is the mouse there? But then I think it's your pen. So
I put my pen down. I must stop fiddling with it. Chris, did you find it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the first one says title, a brief bio.
Yeah. So that's just a list of rough drafts that people created, right? Using docs here on Youth Voices, right? Kind of following the assignment. We can point to the assignment a little bit later. Janet, do you want to introduce yourself? Say what's going on with you right now.
Hi, I'm Janet Ilko. I'm in Chula Vista, California. I'm an academic instructional coach for grades 5 through 8, EL coordinator, AP, and professional boxer because that sounds way better than.
So how many titles do you have? Sorry.
3, 4.
Okay.
Today, don't ask. Yeah.
Cool.
A lot. But I'm very excited. And yes, I see some potential for this. This is going to be great. And I miss you all.
So it's the Howard Gardner
Community School is a K through 8. We are up to 227 kids today. TK through 8, 1 per grade level. I'm focusing this year on writing our English learner roadmap. So I'm really excited to work with our middles, grades 5 through 8, and expanding our writing. And so that I get to focus on that this year rather than having the entire program. So I have 3 major roles, kind of AP-ish for that grade level, our academics, and then English learners for the entire campus. And so writing a new roadmap this year.
So Janet, we're kind of going into some detail from the summer, but as I shot an email to you earlier, I think there's got to be a fit at your school for Habits of Mind.
I think so too. I saw a little bit of it today
But so I thought
I went and read it.
Good. So welcome. So what we talked about so far is that one of the ways we worked with people in Nikki's program, LootSTEM, people meaning young students who are about to become student teachers in the spring. Is that close to correct, Nikki?
Yeah. It's a full year residency. They start in school in the fall.
Right. And Marina and I worked with them this summer, and one of the things we did is we had them read. Maybe this summary will be better than we've done so far here, but read an article about the 16 Habits of Mind that our Costa wrote. I think he wrote it in the late 90s, maybe. There's a link to it elsewhere. We can get that. But and then out of that, we asked them to choose 3 habits of mind and write about themselves. Record that as a bio and put that up on Youth Voices. That's sort of the habits of mind work that we've done, talked about here so far. And if you click on the habits of mind icon on each of the tables in each of these areas, you'll get to see some examples of all that.
Cool.
All right, Chris, are you following that, or give us some good questions here.
Yeah. So the first thing I was looking at, I was just reading a brief bio there by Emily. And she tags it as habit of mind bio. And what's the bio habit of mind?
So it's a bio, but I don't know. Did she? Yeah.
Did she label the whole thing?
Genre is bio.
Genre is bio.
Yeah. Because they asked them all to create bios, I think.
Right. And she chose, and so what was your question again?
Well, I'm trying, I was reading while we were talking, but in the brief bio thing there, does she, I have to confess, I didn't give it a good
It's
read
okay, yeah.
yet. But I guess she's making the case that she's using creativity as one of her habits of mind, I think. Maybe.
So she chose 3 habits of mind and then organized her life around those 3 habits of mind.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so they read this article about habits of mind, wrote a biography, and then they're like, "Oh, these things really stand out. This kind of I can identify this habit of mind in my own life."
I
and
think
work.
flexibly. My favorite one was I was a waitress for 8 years, so I listened empathetically. Marina, do you have an example in mind?
Yeah, there was a couple that I actually wrote back to that. But it really started with their annotations on now comments. So I think selecting a few that they resonated with and then kind of building that out.
Yeah, which awkwardly are on. We can look at in the one above. They're not in great order. Nikki was wonderful in that she was the first student to post on Youth Voices with this. So yeah, what do you remember the 3 habits of mind you chose, Nikki? Or
I wish I did, but
okay.
what I remember doing was using it, really thinking about a subsection of my biography as opposed to my entire biography, and really focusing in on the role that Youth STEM was playing in my life and how Youth STEM changed the way I thought about the world and how it related to these 3 habits of mind. But right now, I'd have to go back and look at what I said. But it was very specific, and I think Emily's was also specific. Chris, what this assignment allowed people to do is, I think they started, as Marina said, with annotations. So they started with a pretty low risk but text-based set of responses, as I did. And then they went back to those and tried to figure out how those pieces fit together in their own, to create some kind of connected narrative. And Emily was trying to figure out, I think, how her whole background as an artist, as a musician, as an actor, fit into who she was and who she planned to be as a teacher, and which habits of mind sort of animated that her thinking about that.
Okay, now it's making sense. And then, so they annotated the thing we're talking about. Them annotating is that article.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's in the room right above us. We can go to that
Okay.
in a second. Sorry to interrupt you. Did you want to ask more, Chris, or are you good?
I'm just going slow because like I'm on
That's-
day 3 and it's like a fire hydrant. So yeah.
Thank you for coming on day 3. All right, Christina, you have any thoughts or questions to throw in at this point? Or yeah.
I was just I keep hearing you say they were working on drafts, so I was wondering about that process. I mean, you clearly are sort of keeping people writing, even drafting in Youth Voices. So,
Which is why we're in this room, which is their writer's notebook room, just the Kuma space room here. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
okay, so they keep like docs as a set, like as a notebook,
Right.
and then do they choose then pieces of that? Do they refine them and publish them on Youth Voices eventually, or like maybe not kind of thing, or how's that work?
The final assignment for this kind of playlist was that, yes, we post on Youth Voices, and we not only post on Youth Voices, we create an audio version on Youth Voices as well.
Okay, so did that happen in this doc notebook space, or did that happen out on the homepage, like a traditional WordPress post?
It was a WordPress. It was, at least for me, it was learning how to use WordPress and how to put an audio into WordPress.
Ah, got it. Okay.
But just to say, they did record before they got to that. and
I see
and
that,
attach the recording to the doc. So it's a way to
Right.
sort of collect everything together before you go and publish it.
So
And-
just on a technical
Mhm.
point of view, the docs, you're learning both WordPress, but is Doc also WordPress or is it a plugin?
it's a plugin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a WordPress plugin, so it uses the one of the things that we try to address in it, and we did talk about this to them, is that one of the, I don't know how much but one of the interesting things as teachers is that kids do fascinating annotations on text sometimes, and then it doesn't end up in their writing. They sort of start over again when they write. So in this case, we asked them to actually copy 3 comments from their annotations into the docs before you start. So it gave a rough draft feel in a sense to it by doing
That's
that, I think. And then they had to, compose around those comments. Right?
That's interesting. So that's probably why they don't say like, I chose this, this, and this. Blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. You know, it's like, it seems more organic than that somehow.
Personally, I found when I did it that I took my annotations and I put them on the doc like I was, instructed to do. And then when I started to write something that I wanted to post, I found myself really, it was a big point of departure from what I had annotated, because I realized from the annotations that I had my own story to tell that really wasn't clearly connected to the 3 or 4 annotations I had done.
Yeah.
Question about the process too.
Mm-hmm.
Is the text that I'm seeing just a transcript, or did the audio, was that used as a way of thinking, or was the writing used as a way of thinking? And then
The audio's a reading of the final text.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And Chris, I disobeyed that rule as well. So I wrote a text and then I did a different audio.
and then you wrote it again, right?
Yeah,
So talk
exactly.
about revision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you record on?
I tried both of them and I found one easier than the other. They gave us 2 choices and I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a tech question again. Sorry.
So it's okay.
What were the 2 choices?
Vocaroo was one of them.
Okay.
I don't know what the other one was. I know a lot of times when the residents were asking me, I was like, Vocaroo, use Vocaroo. Because
Yeah.
Roku has been around for like 20
Yeah.
years or something, I swear.
I
And
know.
it's still there. I find it helpful too. But
Online,
Yeah.
and I like online recorder. That works just as well. And on Youth Voices, if you on your drop down menu, there is a link to online recorder as well. Just so, anyway, just to know that. And there's a link to a video recorder too. Let's go up to the next room and see what I did put there. I don't remember. Come up to right above. Come right up. Yep. Here. Welcome. Now click on the habits of mind again here.
Just before we go on though, Paul.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Where's you said there's a link to the online recorder, and then you said there was some way to a link to an online video recorder?
Oh my gosh. I just found it.
What?
The video recorder.
Yeah.
It's on your wall.
So
it's the drop down for
if
your
you hover over your name at the top, it's down toward the bottom. There's an online voice recorder and video recorder. I mean, they're just online things. They're not.
Oh.
They're not on our site at all. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have if Vocaroo works better for you, go for it, or some other source. So this is the article. I guess we should have gone in this order. So if you click on the habits of mind here, you can see this chapter 2 of learning and leading with habits of mind. What's wonderful about this document, by the way, and I was talking to Bennett Kalick, who also wrote this with Arthur, with Art, and she actually went in and made some other comments here and there. But there are like over 500 comments here, and we've sort of, there are some pretty wonderful conversations on the right side there. So there's that. And that's, so Bennett then started, when I showed her this, she started to think about, okay, so there's awareness of the habits, and then there's like personalizing the habits, and then there's thinking about how to teach toward them, right? How to do activities that would move students toward doing them as well. I'm not saying that clearly, and we can mess with that spectrum a little bit here, but I think that's what we're after is with that first article, with this article that we're looking at in this room, we're looking for awareness, right? And some connection, certainly. Any thoughts that you want? Should we?
We're looking for awareness, did you say?
I think so. Awareness, but we're commenting, so we're looking for some connection. You'll see that we did mess around with it. They were multimodal workshops, so we asked people to put video and links in the comments as well. So you'll see some of that there.
Sorry, just for clarification, were the comments to their docs? Were it to post on Youth Voices? Was it to now comment?
So it's
comment applies to what?
They're commenting. In this case, they're commenting to the article on Now Comment.
Oh. Okay.
Which you'll see if you click on the habits of mind on this table.
Yeah, I have it open here.
Okay. Did that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, and the 500 comments, is that literally from the Loot STEM group? Like, is that from this
No, it's from TTT. It's from there's quite a few high school students in there at different times. I think, Chris, some of your students are in there. So it's over time that those have built.
I got a question for you, Paul. When a document becomes that loaded with annotations, does it become hard for people to figure out how to converse? How to converse with their own, sort of subgroup, let's say. I found some of the candidates in Loot STEM saying there were so many comments and we didn't know whether we were talking just sort of generally to people who even, had anything to do with us. Is there some value to keeping things within a smaller community?
Of course there is, but I think the opposite too. I think there's some value in like jumping into a stream that's already going, right? Like, there's this stream of thought happening, and I can add my thoughts into it. So, yeah. And Chris, I noticed you recently on Now Comment copied something that you've used other years, right? So it's so. Do you want to say why you did that? And it just technically, I can say it's very easy to go into a document and make a copy of it.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm talking to him about cell phones because that just seems to be, like some people are just like, don't use cell phones, get them away from me. And there's lots of good reasons and everything. But I wanted to have more of a conversation with the kids. So there's a couple of chapters from a book called How to Break Up with Your Cell Phone. And I just was going to have them.
I love that book.
read and annotate it. And
well, Janet,
and
it's
I
your
thought-
kids who've commented on the other on the version that he copied. But go ahead. Yeah.
right, it was my kids from previous year.
Mhm.
And I thought they might actually get distracted by their memories of the people who were commenting and might, I don't know. I thought a clean piece of text might be appropriate I'm trying to have them approach this from an open mind instead of, like, don't touch your cell phone or I'll take it kind of thing. I don't know.
So yeah, Nikki, point well taken. And yeah, I don't know.
Can I
yeah,
make a comment about that too?
sure.
I tend to mix it up. Like I'll sort of, when we first start annotating, use clean documents because I feel like it's just much more straightforward for them to see each other and we're developing a community. But then I do think it's useful sometimes to just say, okay, go to this public document that already has annotations and join that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really exciting too if the author is in there. So that's often what prompts me to sort of like, let's join this other conversation, even though not all the people in here will still be active. In fact, most of them won't be, except you all. You'll see the author responding to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting. So I don't know. I kind of mix it up.
And just a tech note on now comment also is if you are the person who put the document up, and if you're not, we can make you the author of the owner of it. That you can turn off all the comments until a certain point. Like you can turn them off until Friday at 12 o'clock. And then all the other comments would come back. So that's a possibility as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm looking for.
I think
keep
that.
talking.
Can I ask you about that? Just like technically, I feel like some people do that. Like you go in first to make comments, and then we'll see comments other people have made, just so that people aren't biased by other people's comments. Is that the kind of?
I think so. Yes.
That? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, just another thing that can happen with my students is sometimes then they focus more on commenting than actually reading, and so
But that's
they
like
don't always. What's that?
That doesn't feel like a terrible thing to me. But
it's not a terrible thing unless you're trying to BS your way and like I really didn't read it.
I see. Yeah.
Right. So there's that kind of thing with kids.
Yeah, believe it or not, how many comments I need to put in, or I'm gonna pop in and out. Yeah. Or I get the Me Too's.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, can I throw in an idea too that came up talking to Christina Puntel, if you don't mind, Paul?
Go for it.
She was talking about how, we were doing a little back and forth about like requiring X amount of comments versus, not requiring X amount of comments. And she was saying that she actually usually does require X amount of comments, but then she pulls together she does like a remix of the comments. So she doesn't really have them, but she pulls out the comments and makes a like read aloud kind of spoken word text from a lot of the comments. And then they continue the discussion that way, which I thought was fascinating. So they get out of the text. They don't just stay in the text or stay in the comments. They pull it out and then kind of do this like sort of creative remix of like the things that came up. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting sort of text rendering kind of idea.
Yeah, and I guess one way I'll approach that is I've noticed in general in their reading is they comment more in the beginning of an article than they do at the end. The longer the article, the more sparse comments
Yeah,
come at
it
the end.
drips out. Yeah.
You know, so I'll often say, I would like you to comment at least somewhere near the beginning, whatever you judge to be somewhere in the middle, and wherever
Oh,
you
that's
think is
interesting.
somewhere
Yeah.
near the end. Just because it really does, like, it's like a lot of times with my students, it's front loaded stuff up top and they miss the conclusion or like a change in the argument. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Good.
Cool. Shall we? This is going to be kind of recursive in funny ways, but let's go over to the room to the right here. Hop over. So if you click on the habits of mind icon there, you will go to it's the proposal letter. And Nikki, do you want to say what that is?
So it's really, I think, important that we figured out a way to bridge what the students were doing this summer and what's going to happen when they hit their residency in the beginning of fall semester. What we discovered in our past years is while students may have appreciated some of the, the strategies and the content that they learned during the summer, when asked, are you applying any of this? They would very quickly say, no, we're not. So this particular assignment was designed very cleverly, I think, by Marina as a letter to their cooperating teacher or their host teacher or their mentor teacher, whatever you want, whatever term you want. And what Marina and Paul did together is to create a template for that letter that really made them, in a sense, structure their thinking. So they had to come up with an activity that related to what they were learning and a brief rationale for why they thought that this activity was something worthwhile. And it became a teaser or an introduction to the host or mentor teacher about, here's something I'd like to try out in the classroom. Okay.
Yeah.
So Marina and Paul did I do a fair job of explaining how
You always do so much better than I do. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, but you did it. I mean, it's like you heard me say, this is the problem. And what Marina did in particular was come up with such a nice structure, which the students then are going to turn into an activity plan, which is much less, shall we say, much less creative in terms of how it's structured. But we're taking them back to that letter to their host teacher and saying, now turn this into a plan which your teacher approves, and you use it with a small group of kids or a whole class, either during the school day or after school. But we want to see this done in either October or November. I can't remember which month we decided to put it in, but it's like, you're going to, it's going to be our injection, in a sense, our summer work injection, right? Where we inject back into them some of what they learned, reminding them of that, and then getting them to try it out with kids. And then we ask a series of questions about, how did it go? What worked? What would you do differently next time? So some of the standard kind of, after you teach something, how would you refine and revise it?
Nice. I love the letter idea as
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, as a relationship building thing too, right? Because they have to establish a relationship with their.
Absolutely. And I think it's, Janet, what I really liked is that it's like, by the way, host teacher, I know that I may be perceived as a burden, right? Because I'm a beginner, right? And I'm just coming here and I'm working, and you've got to, I'm an apprentice. But what this letter does is bring some real capital. It's like, by the way, I know something that I could bring to your classroom or our classroom. if you give me permission to try it out, you might want to learn more about it as well. So I think it's a very gentle way for residents to say, this program is requiring me to do this, but it's also a way to say, we're bringing new tools, we're bringing new ideas to your classroom.
Yeah.
I have to say, I had a student teacher this past year, and that's exactly what happened. She came in with some really great ideas, and we had such a great relationship. We were thinking partners, and she had to do a project for her program as well. And it was great. We worked together. We built a whole unit that that was not my plan in going into my year. So
That's cool.
I mean, I think it's great. And I like going through all the proposals. It's very exciting from educators' perspective to see what's being brought into the classroom.
And just to say, not everybody wanted to do a Habits of Mind project, but quite a few people did, which I was impressed with.
Yeah. That surprised me, Paul. I expected people to use the technology bells and whistles. I thought, okay, they're going to tell me how they're going to put Scratch in the classroom, or they're going to use, some of the tools, the recording tools or the audio. No, what seemed to be most salient to them were the habits of mind themselves. Right. And so I was a little surprised, to tell you the truth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what informed me that the habits of mind were a very powerful language for them.
So when I look at the letter, I think I can glean some of like what the prompting was. Like, they're showing themselves to be kind of an expert in the administrative realm of things by citing standards. And then they kind of show themselves to be flexible by saying, well, at least the one I'm reading is like, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do the other thing.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, Marina, if you came up with some of this. You just mentioned that someone, like you just had a student teacher who did something like this for you. Was that person part of this program, or was that a different thing? And if so, did that influence how you structured this?
No, different schooling. And truthfully, I think, Paul, you've created the framework, the framing, right?
Yeah.
For the structuring. And then, and that came from a document, I think, Nikki, that you had shared with us about bridging to practice. So when Paul sent me the template just to kind of take a look at it and review it and see, I was like, oh, well, I'd like to actually take this and like kind of play around with it and see how I would use this to structure out a letter that I could share with my own colleague,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a host teacher. It could be a co-teacher you're writing
Absolutely.
to, right?
Yeah. And I did share that with the residents too. I was like, I'm taking what I'm doing here too and thinking about how am I going to apply this with my, and ask my co-teacher, is this something you want to dig into with me a little bit more, as we start the year off with this new group of kids around persistence. So I think we posted
which is a habit of mine, by the way.
We did.
Yeah. But it was, it is something that I plan on working with. But yeah, the student that I hosted, different school, but as part of her coursework, she was asked to do a kind of like a project-based learning experience. Right. And we worked together she told me some things that she was passionate about, something she noticed within the classroom and our students. And together we designed something that I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for my kids, but I think it could be an impactful thing that they'll hold on to for a while. So,
Marina, what's really interesting, and this is, it's always good, this is dumb luck when all of this comes together, but Shirley Hall, who works for the Danielson Group, really also was created a series of webinars that all the residents went through this summer as well. And her message, her overarching message is, and the host teachers were participants as well as the residents in that one. And the message was, no, you're never perfect. Teaching is never perfect. And so there was a strong emphasis on, you're going to work together. You're going to figure out, how you can have greater impact on, the students that you're working with. And you're going to do it together. So that was the preamble, I think, for this letter, which said, by the way, host teacher, here's something that I want to bring to the classroom. What do you think? Right? So it was, as I say, all of these pieces for the first time, and this is our, third summer doing this. Finally, and I think the pieces in the summer onboarding are beginning to come together.
So there's a lot going on here, and that's okay. I do want to identify, again, going back to Benna Kalik's reference to this that you can get teachers and students aware of the habits of mind. You can get them to start practicing them personally. Right. She said the wall that they often go up against, and I think we can recognize this, is okay, now, do you want to create activities that will grow these habits of mind? And her comment was a lot of places say, we have such a jammed curriculum, we don't have room for that right now. So I just want to say that I think tonight we've seen some example of the awareness in the annotations, the personalizing it in that post, the bio post. But then here we are at least beginning to think about building, or some of them were building activities that would grow the habits of mind in students, right? So I think that's kind of worth noting. Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why this works is because it's not an assignment which says take 3 habits of mind and make them, and incorporate them into a unit plan. Okay. It felt more organic than that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm looking at the clock. I am, but let's go down to the next room. I don't even remember what I put there, but let's do that for a second. Oh, okay. Pretty sure. Yeah, this is something. Oh, okay. Oh, well, this was mentioned earlier. You can click on it. What you'll see is the bios, and this is in a multimodal publishing room, so I wanted to show that was working. Sorry to jump you all around here, but if you go just to the left there, you'll see Habits of Mind. Click to see how any Youth Voices member can give and get an award. That needs to be a whole nother, and we have spent some time working on that. But from the perspective of how are the habits of mind integrated in Youth Voices, just want to, I'll say this kind of quickly, that when you post, and some of the scholars this summer did actually begin to do this, but you can go in and choose a category that is a habit of mind, and so it's sort of a way for you to nominate, sort of a way for you to say, when I created this post, I did some flexible thinking, right? So again, you're just sort of pointing to it. You're not really reflecting much on it at that point, but you can do that. And then, we as teachers can go in and add those categories, right? Which is in fact what I did this summer. So we can say, oh, you're doing a lot of flexible thinking here. And then that habit of mine ends up in the right column. You can kind of see that on these posts, I think, if you're looking at the bio posts. And then eventually you can actually use almost like a badge system. You can badge people with the habit of mind that you think they deserve for that work, right? And I'm rushing because of time, but let me just finish. Go down to the last room just to show you what's here. One more room down, and yeah, thank you. And this is something you've seen before, but Karen Chaudhry and I did some work last year around building portfolios. Again, going back again, notice to 3 habits of mind. So finding work that fits each of the habits of mind, and then building a portfolio around that, right? What we learned, which we learn every time we do portfolios, right, is that if you can set that up first, that's great. And so that's a proposal here, that when you do your early on work, you start by choosing 3 that you think you're going to work on this semester. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, just to say. So that's kind of, I know we rushed through some of the stuff here at the end. But thoughts, questions? What do we need to return to? Think about again?
Well, I want you to know, I've just noticed and been kind of gobsmacked as I just very quickly look at some of the wall postings from the residents,
Mm-hmm.
how much they reveal about themselves, and their own background and what they bring to the classroom in terms of DEI, right? And I think that then going back and finding the habits of mind that really captures some of that very genuine thinking about who they are as people and how that's going to inform who they are as teachers, will really, if they can do that with kids, I think that might be a really nice portfolio structure.
We're almost out of time, so don't have. Thank you for that, Nikki. I just I'm thinking that we didn't do a very good job here of showing, but so let's just say that in a week of activity, in an average high school classroom or middle school classroom, at the end of that week, I mean, that's how we've designed it. So there are 3 activities that people do. Then they stop, they look at 3 or 4 of the habits of mind that Marina and I have chosen, and they choose one of those, and they do a now comment annotation about that one, saying, when I did this rough draft and when I did this recording, this is the habit of mind that I used most with this. So there's that kind of reflection that's going on as well. Breathlessly, I'm going to stop and see what thoughts you have about what we might do next or what you're thinking. I would love to return to the habits of mind like the 3rd Wednesday of every month. That's one thing Christine and I brainstormed here. But so what do you think might be next to do? Or what are your questions or thoughts now? What did I rush through that was too much again?
I'm really interested in the habits of mind. Sometimes, and I want to say, sometimes the workflow of like youth voices gets me hung up. So like I could imagine using, I don't know, coming together and working, like bringing something and talking about the habits of mind related to my own work that I did somewhere, wherever, and maybe writing or like working on a bio or something that I can draft wherever and then post it in these voices just to give it a try. Like I was looking at the wall and trying to figure out how to do
yeah, just to say, we didn't do that this summer, the wall stuff, but go ahead. Yeah.
Right. And the badges and all that. Like I feel like I'm not sure if I want to do everything in Youth Voices like you did, or if I'd like to try some of the activities wherever we try them. I'm kind of thinking like that. I mean, I know that there's a reason to try it in Youth Voices too, so maybe that is the purpose. But I'm trying to think through, like, sometimes there's focusing on the habits of mind and sort of getting to understand them better by doing some things with them. And sometimes there's like working in the Youth Voices ecosystem to understand how to use that better. And maybe we can do those all together. But sometimes I feel like in an hour, it's hard to do all those things. So I'm just wondering how.
Yeah, because I think of my students, they take, 7 different classes. And, one of the things, in paragraph 7, when we teach the habits of mind, when we teach for the habits of mind, we're interested also in how students behave when they don't know an answer. So they don't know answers a lot in, especially like their sciences classes, So I guess that seems like for my students, I think they could easily say like, oh yeah, like in calculus this week, I tried this thing. So yeah, kind of to echo Christina, to make them aware of habits of mind, how they use them across their life, seems like a great idea.
One of the suggestions that Benna had was that, yes, it's great to ask them after 3 activities, like what habit of mind did you use? But she suggested that they also recommend thinking about how could your work have been better if you had used another habit of mind, right? So that's an interesting
that's a nice
sort of
process.
Janet, you've been sort of soaking it in, but
Yeah, it's jumping back in. Very happily jumping back in. I need to read it and, where the baby stages, but no, I can absolutely see where this would go. So it's a lot of me. I want to spend some time reading the article, looking at some of this work and seeing from the very beginning. I have a
so
really,
just to say to you and others, sorry, I interrupted you.
it's okay.
Okay. The Habits of Mind Institute for Habits of Mind that has been recently updated, but you can, as a school, you can become a habit of mind like school and get certified, and there's support for doing it. So just to know that's a possibility. Okay. And Art sent me an email right before this started and said, I really want to know what those students did this summer. So, we'll get him and Benna on and have a conversation with them as well.
Nice.
So.
And the group comes, I guess your Lute STEM just comes back together after they, like you have meetings during the school year with them still?
Are you doing Fridays again or not?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Okay.
We are. So at least one Friday we call Thank Goodness It's Friday. And very often for example, we'll invite Marina and Paul on a Friday, if they can make it. And the conversation will be, remember, what questions do you now have? How can we help you move some of this along? So we tend to think of this as a repeated refrain that we use TGIF for that purpose. And we need to do it more deliberately. And we did better last year than we did the first year, and we'll do better this year in terms of being very intentional about that.
Yeah, it'd be great to get some of them on Wednesday too. Anybody who wants to volunteer to come over.
Yeah, I'm really, especially the English language arts folks, and we've got, I think, 3 or 4 of them. I'm really going to try to get them. I realize that they're probably, feeling like we keep, stacking things on top of other things, but I'm going to see if I can get them here.
And these are people who have like full-time student jobs and full-time other jobs, and it's like,
oh yeah. I mean,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, our students are
and children, and it's like,
yeah,
I'm always amazed.
Got it, all of the above.
Yeah. Thank you all. Let's keep going.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you
for sharing all this.
For sure.
Oh, as I say, reading some of those wall comments makes my heart sing. It's great.
That's cool.
Talk to you all soon.
Good
Okay.
night.
Did you see how to get out, Janet? Okay, I think she found it.
I think I remember.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Janet, it's down there. You got it. Okay.